Hey guys, fight commentary breakdowns here. This is probably going on fight commentary chats, but anyways, this is Mr. Tony Poland. He is a massage therapist who focuses a lot on helping athletes, in general, people recover. So, Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I appreciate it.
And today we have something called the shoulder sphere, which Tony recommended to me, and so I wanted to explore the gadget with him. So, Tony, I understand that the creator of the shoulder sphere is a doctor, and he's your friend, right?
He came out to LA and did a little workshop with us. Mm-hmm. So I got to meet him, but I couldn't say friend. He's certainly been very, very supportive.
I guess before we even get started, I know me, for example, sometimes my rotator cuff feels like it's not exactly strong yet because I do some boxing, I do some kickboxing, and I'm sure there's other people, even if they don't do combat sports, they probably have rotator cuff issues potentially, right? That's always something we need to worry about as we get older.
Even when you're young and strong, the first thing to fail, if you're lifting weights overhead, the first thing to fail is typically going to be the rotator cuff. If you see somebody in the gym and they've got weights overhead and they fail and they have to drop the weights, it's typically going to be the rotator cuff that said, hey, I can't handle this much.
I see. So rotator cuff, are they a set of muscle, tendon, fascia? What exactly is a rotator cuff? Because we hear that a lot, but we kind of don't really know exactly what it is.
So some basic level anatomy. There are 3 layers of muscles that go together to make the shoulder work right. So the shoulder is the most mobile joint in the body because it's only attached actually right here at the sternum.
Oh.
So the collarbone is the beginning of the shoulder complex, right? So the collarbone goes out to the shoulder blade, which is out here and on your back. And that shoulder blade sits on your rib cage on the back and moves around and rotates and goes up and down and in and out on your back, but it's only attached right here. So it's a really complex joint. The shoulder joint itself is like super, super shallow. Like the hip joint is really deep and a big ball and socket joint, but the shoulder joint is a very, very shallow ball and socket. So the shoulder joint is very shallow, and the ball sits in there of the upper arm bone, sits in that shallow socket. And because it has such a huge range of motion, it's very, very vulnerable. So the first layer of muscle and tendon and basically going to ligament there is the rotator cuff. That's the first one that actually pulls that head of the arm bone into that socket and supports it in that socket because it doesn't stay pulled tight into that all the time. When you relax your shoulder, it's actually going to relax slightly out of that socket. And then when you start to move, that rotator cuff is the first thing that contracts and pulls it up into that socket to protect it, and then helps you to rotate or elevate or whatever you're going to do with that arm bone from there. Then there's the muscles that move the shoulder blade called the scapular stabilizers. And they actually just move that shoulder blade around on your rib cage. Move it forward, move it back, move it around, and rotate it as well. And then there's the big muscle, the big shoulder movers like the pec major, the lats, things like that, the deltoids that actually move the shoulder in big, strong motions. So if you have big, strong shoulder movers, but you have very weak or slightly injured or rotator cuff muscles that have tender points in them or trigger points in them, then they're going to be your weak point. So keeping that rotator cuff strong is what the shoulder sphere is all about. And it's pretty much an automatic, becoming more and more of an automatic for pro athletes nowadays.
Wow. Bring up the shoulder sphere now, which a lot of you watching probably can see. Both Tony and I have. The first thing to notice about this when you get this in the mail is that when you put it on, the wrist must be pretty snugly put in place, because what Tony was explaining to me was that you have to make it so the wrist is extended, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I know, just reading the instructions, is that you're not supposed to use your grip strength on this at all.
If I understand it correctly, you're supposed to use the grip strength a little more on the larger one. The larger one, when you grip that larger ball, the pro athlete version, heavier version, that actually activates the rotator cuff more. If I understand correctly. Again, I'm not a strength coach, so that's just information I've gotten from the strength coaches.
Tony, today what you want to show all of us is 2 patterns, right? 2 patterns that we could do with the shoulder sphere to help our rotator cuff.
So a little more introductory information about the shoulder sphere, though. the cool thing about this is that this little ball, every time it goes around each one of your rotator cuff muscles, that there are rotator cuff muscles that do internal rotation, external rotation, and abduction, drawing the elbow up and out. So every time that ball goes around, you're getting a contraction from those muscles, each of those muscles in turn. So 180 degrees is an eccentric contraction, and the other 180 degrees is a concentric contraction for those rotator cuff muscles. So as fast as that ball can be going around there, you can really get a lot of contractions from the rotator cuff. The little electronics piece that comes with that, if you turn that on and you start moving it, the green light tells you that you're in a cardiovascular mode, and the red light, if you speed up enough that it goes into red, you're actually getting much more into strength training at that point. That's the barrier between those two.
Interesting. I see.
So from my perspective in recovery, the coolest thing about the shoulder sphere is that when you're going through patterns, when you're going through ranges of motion, things that you would normally do, like say, I work with a lot of volleyball athletes. So when I have them going through range of motion for a swing, like for a serve or for a block, if there are spots where that ball doesn't go round, it just kind of clunks, it stops rotating around and it clunks, clunks, clunks. Those are spots where you don't have full control of your rotator cuff in that range. So if I completely wind back and it starts to clunk back here, then that's the range that I need to work on. If I'm reaching out and it clunks out here, you know, you're basically looking for those spots where it doesn't move smoothly. And that tells you that's your areas that you need to work on more.
I see. And a question I think a lot of us might have is, does it matter? Because, you know, the ball can go this way, or the other way. So am I rotating it vertically, horizontally? What is the correct way to rotate the ball?
By what he said in the workshop, it doesn't really matter. Okay. There's basically a default. There's a direction that you'll automatically be really good with. And in other directions, you may not be as good with. I've taken that as a challenge to get a little better on the opposite or any other direction. So I look for what's easy, what's not easy, and I go for the not easy version, right? So you want to challenge your brain, challenge your muscles, get a cleaner pattern wherever you go. So the D1 D2 patterns. D1 D2 comes from PNF, which is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, which comes basically from teaching stretching, which in a nutshell are basically internally rotating, crossing the body, so adducting, and I guess that would be extending, and then doing the opposite of those three, abducting, externally rotating, and flexing the shoulder. So you're doing, the shoulder joint does three different ranges. It's flexion, extension, it's adduction, abduction, and it's internal rotation, external rotation. So you're combining all three to create a challenge, a complex challenge for the brain and the rotator cuff, going through that pattern. And then the opposite is, if you just take one end, go across your body and reverse all three of those, then you've got the other pattern. So I think they call this one draw sword. I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. So if you were drawing a sword up and out, and the other one is if you take that across the body and draw it down and internally rotate as you come down. So from here to here, internally rotate. So you basically try to turn your palm towards the front of your body. Like basically, yes, exactly. Here to here. So that's externally rotated and internally rotated. I'm going to turn my elbow forward, my palm as forward as I can get it. Right.
I see.
And then from either end, if you just take that end position, bring it to the other side of the body and reverse those. Yeah, exactly. Then you've got the other pattern.
And this one, I am turning it so it's my.
You can see my hand is.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so internal rotation.
That.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back and forth. And Dr. Chung didn't show this D1 D2 pattern. He he has these little stands where he has little rings, and you basically get the shoulder sphere going, and you put your arm through that ring and try to maintain the rotation as you're going back and forth through those rings. For me, I'm a massage therapist. I'm working my hands in all sorts of different directions and places and applying a lot of pressure. So I wanted to challenge all 6 directions that the shoulder goes. So I just adapted the shoulder sphere to the D1 D2 patterns. So if you start it going there, and then go back and forth between those rotations, between those D1 D2 patterns, and then go to the other side and down. And there I clunked a little bit there. You could hear that. So anywhere you clunk, you want to go a little slower through those regions and clean up that motion.
Oh, I see. And then some regions, I'm not even really rotating the ball. So that means, I might not even have any of the muscles right now.
Well, it's not about it's not about not having the muscles. It's typically going to be trigger points in those muscles. If you learn a series of stretches to stretch the rotator cuff, say with a dowel or with yoga-based stretches, then you can stretch those muscles out, calm those trigger points down, and you'll get better range of motion, better control, and you'll get much cleaner actions.
Wow. I see. So it's very strong up here because most people, I guess, growing up, we've thrown balls, so it's very strong up here.
Sure.
And then I guess as we go down here, it's like I don't know what to do anymore.
So you can apply that to, say, throwing a punch. Throwing a twist punch. Yeah. Wow. This is going to change everything because you can find out where in the rotation of the twist it is weak, which probably for me it's most of the motion. So can't imagine.
Yeah.
But everyone's got some weak spots like that. The trigger points, when you have a trigger point in a muscle, I was telling you about trigger points earlier. When you have a trigger point in a muscle, it creates a complete contraction of a local spot and creates a little knot, like a tender nodule there. And then on either end of that knot going out to the ends of the muscle, those fibers are pulled taut. So they're not very functional. It can't contract like normal because they're already partially contracted. So it makes the muscle weaker. If you can stretch those muscles and strengthen them with the shoulder sphere, then you get rid of those issues altogether.
Wow.
You make your shoulder much more bulletproof per se.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to mention, talking about the exercise you do, where I'm showing it without the shoulder sphere, you go down and unsheath your sword. The thing is, in boxing, we actually do that exercise every time. We do it like a cross lateral, so we lift our left leg in addition. So it's interesting that now I kind of see, besides it being a cross lateral, it's actually a really good activation / warm up of the rotator cuff. I didn't realize that.
Absolutely. And it's also warming up that cross-body power generation.
I see.
Right, so your power comes from, like, your right shoulder punch power comes from your left hip flexors.
Yeah, I see.
So you're warming up that pattern.
I see. Wow. I think this one's really cool because it's not a motion I usually do, but I can tell it's really good brain training. Just even without even thinking of rotator cuff, there's a really good brain training for the cross laterals. Wow. And then like you said, you could switch it this way and then go this way. Go that way. I see. Yep. Wow. So and
any pattern that you're
No, go ahead.
Any pattern that you use in your sport, in your activity, whatever it is that you do, any pattern that you use, you can clean up that pattern, clean up your rotator cuff, and protect the shoulder joint by making it strong and functional throughout those patterns.
I see. You're a masseuse. You do a lot of massage therapy. So for you, it's those two motions. What do you usually teach volleyball people?
So let me just clean up vocabulary a little bit. Masseuse is kind of an old term that we don't really use anymore because it's been kind of taken over by the prostitution industry.
My apologies.
Prostitutes. No worries. It's most people, little by little, people are learning, but generally prostitution rings sell themselves off as massage therapy, and it isn't. So we don't really refer to ourselves as masseuses or masseurs anymore. We're massage therapists or body workers. When you get a little more specific into like deeper work, more specifically trained work, it's more like body work. But this is the larger version as well here.
Okay.
This is the pro athlete version, and it's certainly significantly heavier.
Yeah.
I would never recommend that anyone who's not ready for pro athletic work start with something like this. You definitely want to start with the rehab, basically training version, the smaller one that we were just working with. But this one is significantly heavier and takes the entire body to counter all of that motion.
I'm going to try this on my right real quickly just to see. And again, I'm taking the lessons I already learned from Tony. This needs to be snug because the wrist has to be slightly extended. And so I'm doing that. And then this one. And also, the sensor seems to be working now. I guess I didn't press on long enough or something earlier. I see. So we can do that motion that Tony was teaching us again. So we're going here. Oh, actually, we should start with the unsheathing. I guess it doesn't matter. It could go both ways.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter at all.
I'll start here because I feel stronger up here. So I'll go down here. And, I guess when it's green, I'm doing it correctly. Oh, now it's red. Interesting.
So it's not about correct or incorrect. It's the speed. So when you're at slower speeds, you're doing more of a what's the word? I've lost my vocabulary today, Jerry. Sorry about that. You're in more of a cardiovascular, like an endurance sort of thing, slow and steady. When you start speeding up, then you start challenging your strength a lot more. So when you hit that red line, then you're really challenging your strength, and you're gonna start building muscle.
I see. Yes, as I go quicker, I'm feeling it in the rotator cuff, and it's being red. I see how it works now.
Yeah. So just usually when people first start using it, 15, 20 seconds, they immediately start feeling the burn in the rotator.
Yeah, I already feel a little burn. I feel muscle here that I've never felt before. This is crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it very quickly hits that rotator cuff. I have seen some of my pro athletes who use the pro version, use the pro version in a high speed motion for as much as 5 minutes at a time. And Dr. Chung can do that as well. Wow. He was amazing.
And what's interesting about this, guys, is there was a slight little click in the shoulder, which, it's natural. Sometimes the shoulders click. But
sure.
Even though it was a click, it didn't feel like anything was uncontrolled. It was just like, okay, adjusting a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a little click. If you circumduct your shoulder, if you bring your shoulder all the way around, there's often going to be a little click. And that clicking is usually just one tight tissue going across another one as you go around that range. So it'll cross across another one and go back into its position, and you get a little click there. It's very, very common, very normal. But that said, that's usually tension based, and if you stretch those muscles, then you can resolve that.
Makes sense. This is so interesting. The other thing it says is don't let it bounce too hard, right? So that's another thing I need to remember.
Yeah.
So one thing I could try right now.
Well, in the course of normal use, it's not going to bang real hard. If you shake it really hard, that might do some damage, but they're certainly very sturdy.
I see. Good to know. So basically, don't use this as a shake weight, everyone. So I'm gonna see what happens.
Right.
Look real quick what happens. Oh, I wouldn't even know how to turn. Wow. This is definitely something I'm gonna have to mess around with. I wouldn't. I see. This is how you turn the punch.
Out at the end. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You can do it. Absolutely.
I see. And guys, it's obligatory when this goes on YouTube. Guys, these are just general thoughts and everything. It's not meant to diagnose anything or treat anything. Just a general obligatory disclaimer, of course.
On to the stretches. Are you interested in me showing you the rotator cuff stretches?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. So do you have a stick, a dowel, a Joe stick, anything like that sitting around?
I might.
Even the stick, if you use one of those, if you use the stick like a muscle roller, that makes it very easy to do as well.
Yes. I have a muscle roller.
Oh no, not a foam roller. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
Okay, sure. Oh.
This is TheStick, TheStick.com. It's like a Not familiar? So this is like a, what do you call it? A baking pin or a rolling pin for your muscles. So if you, I'll show you my thigh there. So I'm basically rolling up the thigh on the quads, and that pushes metabolic waste out of the muscle, like say after exercise, so that when you do your stretches, there's less tension in that muscle for you to stretch, and you get much more efficient stretches.
I see.
Anyway, so it's a very handy tool that a lot of athletes keep around. I don't go anywhere without this if I'm going to be active. But I use it a lot for my rotator cuff stretches. So if I put my hand on one end, put my elbow on top of that, and then get a hold of the stick as if it were a giant pen, right? In this position, you pack the shoulder blade, so that's pulling the shoulder blade down and back. And then I use my bottom hand to rotate that joint, and that stretches the subscap, stretches the muscle on the front side of the shoulder blade.
Okay.
And then if I want to bring that stretch into the top of the shoulder blade, it's down and back. So again, I pack the shoulder blade, and then I use the bottom hand to pull that elbow across. So basically I'm pushing the arm bone into my rib cage. So down and back, across. I do that same tilt out, and then I tilt my head in the opposite direction, and I wind up with a stretch in Supraspinatus all the way up into levator scap, which goes up into the neck. It's a very common neck tension muscle there. So down and back, across, tilt, and tilt the head. And that's for the top of the rotator cuff. And then for the back of the rotator cuff, if you put a knee up to work around, put your arm on top of the stick, on top of the knee, and then you internally rotate that shoulder. So that stretches the rotator cuff muscles on the back of the shoulder. So here, I'm just holding it with my wrist, holding my wrist to the stick, and I'm tilting it to rotate that medially or inside, and that gives a stretch on the back of the shoulder blade. Great ways to maintain the shoulder, the rotator cuff, to maintain shoulder strength and mobility.
I see. Sounds like I need to get a stick, man. That stick thing looks so good.
Oh, you would love this. If you're not familiar with the stick, you gotta check it out.
Maybe I could use this.
I would probably pull the sword out, but you could use the you could use the case. Absolutely.
Yes, that's a good idea. So I could do this.
Yes, I wouldn't want that sword falling out while you're stretching.
Good advice.
So hold one end. Put your elbow on top of your hand.
Oh.
And then grab a hold of the case again, like a big pen, as if it were a big pen.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Now pack your shoulder. So pull that shoulder blade down and back. Hold it there as you use the bottom hand to tilt that arm out. Here, I'll do the other side, so I'm mirroring you. Here and here. You should feel that's kind of in the front, deep in the shoulder.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Let me.
Yeah. Bring that elbow up. Bring that elbow up a little bit.
Like
higher.
this.
There you go. Good.
Oh yeah, that definitely feels more like a stretch that's normal.
Cool.
I see. So the important thing is really I have to think about. Oh, there it is. So the more your arm is kind of perpendicular, or your elbows are kind of perpendicular, the better. I see.
Yeah, upper arm perpendicular or parallel to the floor, if you will. Yeah. Good. Yeah, there you go. There's much better range.
I see. Ooh, it's interesting because I've never stretched that before, and because my left is the one that's very, very tight, it'd be interesting to see where this goes. So this goes up, and then. Wow, I see.
Pack the shoulder.
Oh yeah, I need to remember that. Pack the shoulder.
Yeah. Always have to pack the shoulder. If you want to access the rotator cuff, you have to pack that shoulder and keep it still.
Yeah.
And then tilt.
I see. Oh, and then the key is to hold it like a pen, which I kind of wasn't doing. Yeah, this is better.
There you go.
See. Wow, I see. And then I see that I'm kind of extending this a little too much. So hold it more like a pen. Part of it probably might be the sword sheath is probably
I just put.
Oh.
Yeah, a little larger. I just put it between my thumb and my index finger and put 2 fingers around it to try to hold my arm as straight as possible there.
That helps a lot. Look at that. And I could
Good.
Make it even go like this. Interesting.
Nice.
I see.
Yeah.
So I guess this kind of could work, but I think I will get a stick. I can tell how the stick is more accurate, more precise.
And the stick you'll love for getting the muscles to calm down. If you wind up with tight muscles after your workouts, it's a great way to get that metabolic waste out of the muscles so you can get a better post-exercise cool-down stretch session.
Mm-hmm.
I did the Age Life Cycle ride 2008 and rode every mile with this, every rest stop. I got off the bike, rolled out my muscles, did a quick stretch, got my drinks, got my food, whatever, hit the road again. I rode every mile the first time, and I swear I'll never do it again. Great experience, but I would never do it a second time.
Exactly. Tony, I guess since we're at it, man, what got you into your line of work?
Oh, wow. I've always been a natural massage therapist. I grew up walking on my dad's back. He and I both have minor scoliosis. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of was a very natural massage therapist, and standing on set in film, I was doing on-set dressing, prop master, stuff like that. And I would see a friend with their shoulders up around their ears, and it's just not a very pretty sight. You can tell somebody's totally stressing. So I would go up behind them and work their shoulders down and calm them down. And so many people said, Tony, you got to get out of this industry. You got to go to massage school. Like, okay, well, let's take a class and find out. I took my first class and fell in love. And then I took a sports class and it was like, oh, this is the avenue. This is the way I want to go. And I've just been doing that for 21 years now.
Wow. So I think you're one of those people kind of like me, found my calling later on in life, right? You kind of found your calling, not initially, you were initially in film, but then you started finding your calling as you were in film.
Yeah. Oh, I did a number of things before that. I'm older than I look, but I found massage therapy at 34.
Wow. That's awesome. So viewers, I think we should definitely bring Tony back, and we can bring him back to talk about different topics. You know, there's way more to the body than just rotator cuff and shoulder and stuff like that. So I think we should have a series with Tony, and I think I should sit down with Tony in person and interview him and talk to him more. So Tony, man, I think this is definitely a to be continued.
Rock on. Very fun. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So guys, I will link Tony's website and everything so you guys can go and look at his Instagram, look at his website, etc., and contact him if you're in the LA area and need some help with recovery and stuff like that. Awesome, guys. Talk to you guys soon.